being here. I really appreciate it. Everyone has worked real hard, but I think we owe a special thanks, at least I do, to Lynn Danke and Bonnie and Brenda, the folks who set this thing up and did all the work. And I'm not supposed, well, when Chandra's not up there in the office, Chandra also helps out, because we have sort of a home team here that wants to work together and get the job done. And I appreciate everything everybody does. And I appreciate you being here tonight. Everybody who knows me, especially the folks in the party who keep trying to push me on it, the hardest thing for me to do is ask for help. I would rather help others than be helped, but there comes a time when we have to do things like this, and I appreciate you being here to help me out. Everybody knows, you know, David gave a wonderful presentation, and so did Buck, about, you know, what accomplishments we've all made together. Now, I think what we have to keep in mind in this upcoming election is there is no doubt, folks, that the bad guys are coming after us with real evil intent to get us out of the majority and go back to where we were before. The first time I ran, my sensing was that Obama could win. Unfortunately, my sensing was correct. It was correct twice. At that time, in 2012, I said, the only protection the people of the state of North Carolina have from the excesses of the secular progressive is the General Assembly and the governor standing together to make sure that all of the stuff doesn't really flow downhill. We have got to stop that from happening. We're faced now with a situation, I am concerned. My military background is always going to make me think first of our nation and how much I love it. We're faced now with a situation where we could have Obama 3 and 4 if Hillary gets elected. Now tell me how, I don't care what your party affiliation is, the woman is a liar, okay? She out and out bull-faced lies. I had the kind of security clearances she shuffles aside and makes, well, now sure, she is exactly right. She did not ever see anything marked classified. What she doesn't tell you is she knew damn well that stuff was classified, and she gave away, and it threatens the lives of our people in the field, of our military, of our clandestine effort. You know, nobody wants to say that we have to be out there doing nasty things in the world, but you know, you got to do unto others if you want to survive. National security to me comes first. If we haven't got national security, nothing really matters. So you got this woman running for president, and then you got a guy who's an avowed communist running for president. Now tell me what is wrong with this nation when we end up with, by gosh, young people being some of the biggest supporters of an avowed communist. Where do you think they learn it, folks? It ain't from me. I don't know where it comes from. How can they think just because the guy, there's nothing for free. You can't give anything away. It's our money that he's $1 trillion more in debt when we're ready to fall under the wheels because of how much debt we have right now. It's cuckoo clock time, okay? We have got to make sure that those folks are not elected. The thing that I fear most right now is that all of this brouhaha about how our candidate is this and our candidate is that, you know, Trump is a nutcase and blah, 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 blah. It's all nutcase stuff. It'll all be used against us in the end. If we don't come together, I don't care who is nominated. I've said it before and I'll say it again, and you can put me on tape while you're doing it. I don't care. I don't care if the Republican candidate this time is named 666. We can't afford the other guys, okay? The nation cannot afford it. We will disappear. Anybody who thinks clearly has to believe that. I obviously believe in it with a little bit of maybe passion, but that's just the way it is. I learned, my family, what we learned first was we wanted to be an American, we wanted to speak English, and we wanted to get on with stuff, and this is what we have to do. We have got to make sure we band together when all of the talking is done and all of the primaries are over, and whoever the candidate is, I don't care if it's the presidential level, the state level, any level that we deal with, the county level, we have got to support the conservative element simply because we're on a self-destruct path if we go the other way. There's no other way to look at it. I don't feel a lack of empathy for folks who need. I'm willing to give to folks who need. But somewhere along the line, we have to tally up the bill and say, wait a minute, what is all this about? The absurdity of the idea that we don't have enough jobs to go around, but we're importing labor at the same time is absolutely ridiculous. Where does that come from? We have got to get somehow back to some sensible values. We've got to stay with the conservative idea of lower taxes, controlled spending, deregulate, take care of education. That's another area that we really have to look at. Education, I was talking to my niece today, and she listened so attentively that I thought, this state spends 55% of its budget on education. Now tell me, when you got 55% of 100, where your priority is. It's in education. It doesn't matter. David Lewis is a great proponent of education. Buck is, I am. But you get to the point where money doesn't solve the problem. You got to recognize where the problem really is and go after that one. They don't like my solution. Look, folks, we all know the data will tell you clearly that where there are families involved in the education process, the children do well. And where they aren't, they don't. What's the problem in education? It's systemic. It hasn't got anything to do with the classroom. It has to do with the classroom because the 50% without the parental guidance tend to be a little bit harder to teach and a little bit more unruly. But when you've got 55% there, another 25% on Medicaid, how much does that leave to run the whole rest of the state government? 20% is all we have. Now, yeah, you could go into debt, face the $3 billion bet that the guys who came in 2011 faced, as opposed to now we have about $1.5 billion of treasure that we can put on emergency things and take care of it because we have controlled the spending. So after you get the taxes down, after you get the regulations under control, after you do all and work on the education, the infrastructure. I was asked tonight about the bill, the referendum on the bond issue. Wherever the money comes from, you can't have a growing economy unless you have an infrastructure that supports the growing economy. You can't do it. You can't just run around in horses and wagons and transport stuff around. It's got to be straightened away. And finally, there's a thing called security or quality of life. If you don't have that, you don't have people, okay? I have made a vow, and if any of you get my monthly letter, I hope you read it. I have vowed to make sure that security in this state goes front burner. I am convinced that the resources are there so that we can preempt a tragedy rather than clean up the mess. Somebody has to focus on that, and I'm going to try like heck. That's like I've said, every time I've been in front of you, I will listen and I will try. I just can't promise a result, but I'm darn sure going to go after it. Anyhow, I've rambled on. Mona's looking at me saying it's time for me to stop. She's giving me one of these. If you have any questions you want me to answer, please do it while I'm being photographed by the gentleman back there. I think this is great. He's going to take it back and show it to some of the folks. The Democrat Party is going to come after us heck bent for election, okay? And they're going to spend a lot of money trying to turn this thing around, and we can't afford to let it happen. If nothing else, when you go to vote, take 3 or 4 IDs and have that. Now you got me good. Be sure and give it over to them so they can come after you. Because believe me, I will tell anybody the same thing I just told this group of friends. And Mona's head's even going up and down on that one. Now, what I'd like to do is break a little bit from the normal approach. You got to know that I'm standing for re-election, and that David is, and Buck is trying to be the one who goes against the Democrat Party in the Attorney General race. When you come right down to it, we're looking at a part of the reason that that's important. Most people just don't think much about that Attorney General race.